Welcome back to another episode of the Spirituality Out Loud podcast. I am Leslie Seidel, and today I have the lovely Berni Xiong. Hi.
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 Good to be here, Leslie.
Oh, yeah. So Berni is the Shin Kicking Life Spark, which I gotta love as a title. It's one of my new favorite titles because
Thank you.
I think coach is, I hate it beyond
Me
belief,
too.
but
Oh my God.
yeah,
Okay, we'll talk about that in the conversation today.
absolutely. It's just so painful. So I love the Shin Kicking Life Spark. She's a Reiki Master. She's author of several books, including The Year of the Brave Bear and its paperback companion, The Way of the Brave Bear, an intuitive guide for speaking up, standing out, and changing your world. She is a contributing writer for the Chicken Soup for the Soul and the HuffPost. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me
It's a
today.
happy day. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of these amazing conversations. I know before you hit record, you were talking about the theme, the central theme that you're starting to see. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this conversation goes today. And I wouldn't be surprised if it continues to be a running theme throughout. So,
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to start at the beginning,
okay.
which is how were you raised spiritually? If you were raised spiritually or in a religion, or what was your experience of that?
Yeah. So it's interesting because nowadays, when I talk to people, I hear people refer to themselves as recovering Catholics. And I don't know that I've ever really used that term for me because right now at this, season in my life, I don't define as being Catholic, though I was born into, baptized at a Catholic church and raised in a Catholic church. I went to Catholic school for 8 years before going to public school following that. But the positive thing I'll say is, though I call myself spiritual,
Mhm.
today more than religious, and we could go on a long debate about those two words, but it kind of doesn't matter to me because at the end of the day is this. Um, I learned from a very young age about faith, and about
Mm.
belief in something that was much greater than me. And many times I refer to it as God, and sometimes I refer to it as universe. And I don't even see those two as the same thing. I feel as though, depending on the conversation or depending on the situation, I might use those words differently, but I do believe that they both exist. And I believe that my mission and my purpose in this lifetime, in this world, at this place in my life is to make a positive difference in the world, make a positive impact in the world. And I believe that faith and just believing in mankind and that I can make a contribution, being a part of that positive impact, that's what continues to keep me going today with everything that I do. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Well, it didn't. It didn't. I mean, so what you're saying is less about the mechanics of what you had when you were growing up
Right.
and more about looking back. Now you see that you were handed a faith.
I was. I was. My parents are both devout Catholic, and I love them for how much they believe. And I think that having that kind of conviction in anything is admirable, because there have been many negative things that have happened in both of my parents' lives and in all of our lives as their kids. I've got four other siblings and me, making, us a family of seven. Um, People around us, and so at times you kind of question, like, well, if there's a God, how could God let that happen, right? We've heard people say that. And at the same time, what's admirable is, yes, it can feel that painful, but if we know that we're not in this alone, every single one of us who exists in the world today has gone through something hard, then we realize, well, then we've got to keep the faith, because I'm not more special than you, that good or bad things are happening. And so the fact that my parents have that faith, the Catholic faith to hold on to, and the fact that I have some of what I've learned being Catholic for so long, and then now being more open to other modalities, of spirituality and of energy healing, which we'll get into. Um, I think that all groomed me to be the person I am today and the belief systems I have today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's hear a little bit about the journey. So you were
Yeah.
raised in the devout Catholic, right? And
Hmm.
all that that entails,
Yeah.
and went to Catholic school. And then, um, did you believe it at the time?
You
Or was
know,
it even a question?
when you're young, I don't know if you've had this experience. You kind of don't believe in anything when you're young. You just want to have fun. You know, I was one of those kids who was. I wouldn't say I was a bad kid. I was a naturally smart kid who was bored at times and very inquisitive. I questioned a lot. So the times I was naughty or the times I kind of went against the grain was more out of boredom than it
Mhm.
was being anti-Catholic, or standing up for something I didn't believe in. It was less of me standing up to act against something and more of me in search of something else, some kind of knowing I was looking for. So I'd have to say that I've constantly had this yearning for more. I wanted to
Mhm.
learn. I wanted to grow. I was impatient, but it never had anything to do with like, oh gosh, I can't stand my, Catholic principal or my teacher or the nun. It was more or less, you know, I'm bored. I'm bored. What else can I do? I'm going to go and get into trouble.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know each other, so you don't know my story. And so my story is that I was raised with nothing. And
Okay.
not even
Interesting.
atheism, right? So like it just never, it was like it never came up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when I look at people who are Jewish culturally or otherwise, Catholic or all these, there's a little bit of jealousy. There's like a little bit of like, oh, they had the secret, right? Like they knew stuff like prayers and they get on their knees. And I mean, and churches
Yeah.
are like this place for you where they're intimidating. They're not so much today. But in
Sure.
my 20s, we're still a super intimidating space. I'm like,
Sure.
I need gloves and a hat and patent leather shoes or something. Like I just there were things that were going to happen and I didn't know the rules, right?
Yeah.
And so for me listening to other people who have like this devout like
Mhm.
growing being raised, I'm always like, ooh, you're so lucky, right? And some people would say that about me, right? So it's
Yeah.
all just it is what it is,
Well,
you
first
know.
of all, you're the first person who I've heard of who has openly admitted that there was nothing, right? Not even atheism. That's so interesting to me. So, for one, that's intriguing. So, kudos to you for being that unique. But secondly, I would say, and now that I think about it, I would say the cons to growing up Catholic was I live with Catholic guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure you've heard of that before,
Mm-hmm.
but for those who might not understand what that means, it's like you feel guilty for everything even when it's not your fault. And I know that that did come from my upbringing. I'm pretty sure it's from my parents as well, but it's like even when things weren't your fault, you're constantly apologizing, you're constantly feeling bad. You think you're going to go to hell, but I think most of us who grew up Catholic or even Christian know logically it's not true. You're probably really not going to go to hell. You're probably not the devil. You're probably not that evil. But it kind of becomes a running joke where when you do something that seems unchristian like or uncatholic or not friendly, not nice, that the worst possible things can happen to you. And I don't think I ever really believed that was true, but it was constantly a running joke I would use where I'm like, oh, the Catholics don't like me because I'm just too naughty, or I rebelled too much or, whatever it was. So, but to this day, I have this guilt, constant guilt for, I can't even explain why. So that's definitely something I've been working on for
But
years.
I gotta say, I might want to challenge that might be human
That could be.
because
That
I
could
have
be.
it.
Okay, that
Right?
could
Like
be.
I have the like I'm the heathen, right? Never baptized, never da da da. Like I really it took I was this is kind of embarrassing, but I was like 13 when I realized that Christmas had anything to do with Christ. Like
Okay. Okay.
I just
Yeah.
Christmas was present. Like we had the
Sure.
lights and the trees
Sure.
and the presents for sure. But
Right.
like so it's just yeah, no, I still feel guilty. So I don't know that
Okay.
it's so the Jewish people feel guilty,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Like
true.
maybe the Buddhists don't. I don't know. I should ask that question.
That's a great question. If you get a Buddhist on the show, I would love to hear the answer to that. Seriously.
Yeah, like see if that's so we're doing this
Uh,
common themes of all of the
yeah.
religions. And I just think that there might be some humanity to it,
I think
right?
there is some humanity to it. And I also think it's a mom thing as well, because I'm also a mom. And I know you mentioned that you were too. And so there is this constant need. I don't know if I want to call it need now that I say that word, but where I want to make a difference. I want to make an impact. I want to make it right. And many times I have to let go, and surrender because I, am I being too hard on myself at times, right? Am I being so hard on myself? And the guilt comes from a place of, I wish I could do more, but maybe I really couldn't have done more in that given situation, whatever the situation was. So I think much of that is what I've grappled with over the years and decades, really. So that's something I'm constantly, trying to improve and transform, is letting go of all that guilt. It's
So
hard.
here's an interesting thing I hear, which is, can I know I do, not only is this guilt come from religion or spirituality, but can that also be the answer? Right? Like how, like by letting it go, by surrender, which is a common theme in my spiritual life and other people's spiritual life, that healing of the guilt happens.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. I know.
It both is and,
Mind-boggling.
yeah, we're done
Wow.
now.
Yep, we're
We
done.
figured it
That's
out.
it. That's it. Show's over. Thanks, guys, for coming.
You got your answer.
Well, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, wonderful perspective.
So, okay. So, what did you officially leave the Catholic Church? Like, what
Um,
happened? How did you,
yeah, so
what
I
was the
think
beginning of where you are now?
it was kind of situational, actually. And by the way, I also have to mention, because it's important because of my name. Bernie is short for Bernadette, and the church that sponsored my family when they came over from Thailand and Laos during the war had ended. Many of the families were brought over to America or France or various countries, and were given refuge. And St. Bernard's was the name of the church who took our family. And of course, I was named after the church. So there goes a whole other guilt piece too, is I'm named after the church.
You owe them.
I'm named after the saint, so I
Yeah.
owe them, and I owe Saint Bernadette as well because I share her name, so there's a lot of that going on. But as much as I tease about that, I do feel a connection to Saint Bernadette. I feel a intangible connection where I feel like, if it's not so much the story of her life, I do feel as though there is a purpose and a reason that I do exist, and that I was chosen to live at this life, in this life at this time with the family I have, and given the name and given the whole scenario. And so part of me, I do feel responsible in a good way, and I take it as a good thing, that it is my purpose and my mission to be someone of that kind of caliber, healing people, you know, being loving, being compassionate, and making a positive difference. So I would say that played a huge piece, the whole name thing. After the,
But wait a second. Wait a
yep,
second.
yep,
I want to
yep,
hear about her. You've got your own saint.
I know,
Hot damn.
I
No,
know,
that sounds great to me.
I
That sounds super
know.
fun.
I had
Well, who is she? Like, what is she known for? Like, what
Oh,
is the texture
I
of
should
it?
have Googled this first before we had our
Oh
conversation
no!
today. But I mean, she was from
What is your?
France.
Yeah. What is your
She was
feeling?
Saint Bernadette was from France, and before she
Hmm.
became a saint, obviously, she was young. I remember the stories I hear about her. She was a teenager, and her story reminds me very much of like Mother Teresa, where at a very young age she felt called to be of service. And I believe she died at a very young age as well, but she died in France. And the story now that I hear about her, which is why I want to go to France, I think that's where they keep her body, is that even though they weren't doing much to preserve her body,
Hmm.
like she wasn't like decomposing, like the
Yeah.
mysterious thing about her story. And I kind of get goosebumps every time I think about it, is like, for whatever reason, and I think she died in the 1700s. I forget what year it is. My God, I'm so bad with history. um her body was like preserved so well naturally over
Hmm.
time. So that's the thing that I think of when I think of Saint Bernadette, was, oh my gosh, that'd be amazing to go and see her. I don't know if they keep her in a museum where you can actually see her anymore. They used to,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I've seen pictures of her. But the reason this is interesting to me is because it wasn't until about 10 years ago I did a past life regression.
Hmm.
I had no idea what I was doing. By the way, my friend and I just, turned on Louise Hay radio, and we were just listening to the speaker at the time, who was like a past life regression therapist or whatever. And during my very first and last time I've done a past life regression, I saw an image of Saint Bernadette looking at me. And she didn't say anything. It's just the way she looked at me was letting me know that it was okay, but that she sees me, and that there was a connection, between kind of like where she left off in her life and where I'm kind of carrying on the mission. And it's not like I'm the only Bernadette who exists in the world to continue with that mission, but I do feel connected to her. I do feel as though whatever it is I do in my life, it is to be someone of service, it is to be someone of compassion, and it is to be someone who loves and heals and helps before I die in my lifetime. And so whether or not it was just my own imagination, or whether it really was some kind of connection I had to her in another realm, or whatever it was while I was, halfway sleeping in that past life regression, it felt so real to me. It was so amazing to see her, kind of just look at me like, I see you, Bernadette. I see you, and I'm proud of you. Keep doing your thing. If she was talking in today's, language, that's how she would talk to me. But yeah, I wish I could say more. But if anybody Googled St. Bernadette, they would hear the tremendous stories about her. But it's just unbelievable and miraculous that her body was preserved so well after all this time, all these centuries.
Well, and then we can go so far as to say you're preserving her energy, right? You're
And that's it.
preserving and
Yeah.
moving forward this
Yeah.
piece, and
Yeah.
it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really lovely, and
And
that
I think we
she
all do,
calls to you.
Leslie. And I think we all do, right? Whether it's, Saint Bernadette or Mother Teresa or Nelson Mandela or anybody, other people who've existed before us who are no longer here in physical form. I feel as though there's somebody that every single one of us are connected to. I'm no more special or different than you or anybody else, but it's a matter of us listening to that message from the people. And some, it might come in the form of that past life regression vision I had while I was half sleeping. Some, it might come in a dream when you had, overnight, you kind of woke up and remembered your dream. Some might just have a sensation where they just feel compelled to make a difference or do something in the world. And they might feel like that message came from somewhere else. But however that message gets conveyed to you, that kind of doesn't really matter. I believe that everybody receives messages differently, but what I'm saying is I believe that someone like a Saint Bernadette would be connecting to anybody who wants to hear from her.
Mhm.
And if they are, and I don't know that some days I'm equipped for it, to carry on that mission, but hell, if you want to, she'll cheer you on, and people like her, will cheer you on in spirit form. So I don't know how we got on that topic, but that's
Well,
where my
so
name
there's
came
two
from.
things.
That's where
One,
my
which
name
is,
came from.
some days Bernadette just did the dishes. So let's just give her the fact that there were days that she didn't do anything and she stayed on the couch and she was tired. And if she had
Yes.
Netflix, she might have done that. But one of the things that I heard you talk about is this idea, and you always hear, oh, if someone drives you crazy, it's because something inside of them is something that you dislike about yourself.
Mm-hmm,
And then
mm-hmm.
I had someone tell me the opposite, which is those people you admire, those people that you just think, oh my gosh, the Gandhi or the Nelson Mandela, these people who I get filled with when I think of.
Mm-hmm.
I connect with those particular pieces because I have those things inside of me.
Right.
And
Right.
to really go, oh, because we look so much at our negative, we look so much at the
Yes.
bad, right?
Yes.
And so it's okay that she's your saint and that this is
Right.
who you follow and you have clay feet, right? Both are true. Welcome,
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know, and she did too.
Exactly.
And so you're doing your part and that's going to show up how it shows up.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up. A good segue is, have you read any of the books about Mother Teresa? Either the one that she co-authored many years ago, right? Or there was another one, the most recent one that priest, and I feel so bad I forget his name. He shared some of her writings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I read that not too long ago, and it was so um, heartbreaking, but at the same time bittersweet to read these letters for Mother Teresa, one of the most holiest and amazing human beings that I believe existed in this lifetime, to say that there were so many days that she questioned why God kept choosing her. She
Mm-hmm.
hated it at times, the responsibility, the the life. It was not glamorous. It wasn't fun. It was hard. And she
Mm.
questioned her faith a lot. And the reason I thought that was bittersweet was because I'm like, you know, because whenever you make statements, you say things like, I ain't no Mother Teresa. But the thing is, even Mother Teresa didn't feel Mother Teresa-ish enough, you know? So to
Yeah.
even hear how human she was, even towards, you know, the end of her life, where she dedicated her entire life to being the servant of God and the servant of the people, and to still question whether she was even enough or qualified for that. Oh my goodness, it just put things in perspective and made me feel, you know, less, more sane and less bad about myself, that I'm not more whatever, right? Fill in the blank at the end of the day, because even someone like a Mother Teresa didn't feel enough at times. So
But again, that's one of the reasons we're doing this. We just talked about this before we started recording, is life is not a Facebook feed, right?
yeah,
Life is not the news
yeah,
article about Mother Teresa.
yep,
And that is what faith looks like. Faith
yeah,
looks like me on the floor with ugly crying face being like, F you, I'm
yeah,
mad, right?
yeah,
I'm mad. I'm mad that this circumstance is happening right now,
right,
and I'm pissed, and you and I are going to go to battle.
yep,
And the thing that's beautiful today, having done this work for 20 years, is now my God can take it.
mm-hmm,
Where
mm-hmm,
before I didn't understand, I couldn't fight with that.
right,
Like I tried to pretend like, oh, I'm happy. Like there was like this, like a way I could hide somehow. Like,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
today it's like, okay, I know that I'm on the floor sniveling, upset, can't see the higher power good in this scenario.
right,
But the years of practice means for me that I know it will get better. I know it will
yes,
change. I know I can look back and see it.
right,
And that takes, it's hard. Faith is
right,
hard. You know, part
it
of the
is,
reason for this dialogue is the practical way that my faith shows up. It's not a Sunday thing. It's not a Saturday thing. It's not only in the Sangha on the mat.
mm,
It's daily, right?
right,
And so these are the thoughts that you're telling me.
mm-hmm,
These are the ways that it shows up, right?
right,
And that me too. We are all
yes,
human.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. So to bring things back full circle to,
Mhm.
to
Yeah,
answer
yeah.
the question, I was married young. I got married at 16, moved away from home to go live with the husband's family, and they were Lutheran. So then I was converted to Lutheranism. We had a child. He was baptized Lutheran. And then after the divorce, then I kind of at that point just didn't really make a decision. It's like, do I go back to Catholicism? Do I continue with Lutheranism? Or is there something else? And so in my quest to find out what something else is, I've just constantly been on this journey of being open to so many things. And I've taken a world religions course where I learned about, Judaism, Hinduism, Taoism, Buddhism, everything, and then also the spiritual journey I've taken, where I learned about so many different healing modalities. And my goodness, I can't even count on all my fingers and toes all the different things I've learned. But I've become so open to everything that I don't feel like I'm looking for that answer anymore. Because I think when I started the journey, it was looking for the answer. What's that thing I can hold on to? How do I define myself? How can I label myself? And what do we call it? And now it's all of it. All can be true. you know Nothing is wrong, but what's just a good fit for me right now? And I still don't know the answer, because I'm open to all of it. So that's where the journey took me, and it's been such an amazing ride. I'm turning 41 this year, and the only reason that's important to me is because at times I feel like by now I should know, but then at the same time, I was married and had a kid at 16, 17 years old. So I was already acting like a 40-year-old when I was 16. So now I'm kind of regressing. Now at 40, I kind of feel like I'm young again. So
Nice.
now that my son's grown up and, he's pretty much doing his own thing, I'm like, oh, I can be young again.
For the
So I'm
first time,
back on,
kind of.
exactly. So I'm back on that journey again of cool. What does this look like? But my faith is stronger than it's ever been before, in terms of believing in something powerful and loving and beautiful, and that my purpose and mission in this world is to be someone who contributes to that positivity and that positive contribution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that there's some, so the path is always the path,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, that's the thing. There's a couple things that I really appreciate. One, that you were seeking. You just kept seeking,
Yeah.
right? And some people seek only in one religion and they just keep seeking in that religion, which is great and has its own merits.
Yeah.
You know, I remember hearing, I was sitting with not one-on-one, Pendra Shodron, and in a huge group. And
Which is
one
still
of
amazing, by the way.
hands down. And one of the things that she said was this idea that there's so many options available today with the internet and with this and that and the other, that people can just do these minor samplings and never really go deep
Yes.
into the shadow of the work, right? There is a shadow of Buddhism. There's a shadow of Christianity. There's a shadow of Catholicism. And there's something really beautiful in just sticking with, this is my path, and it's not always pretty, and it's not the perfect, and the church does wrong, and it does great work.
Right.
Both are true.
Yes.
And so to hear you at this new place, I think some of the freedom happens when you've done so much searching that you're like, oh, it's just the act of searching I needed.
Yes.
Not the particular path.
That's it.
And I mean, I wish that I could find a path that didn't involve meditation. I mean, please, someone show me one that doesn't make me have to sit for a half an hour every day or 2 hours. It's just, you know, so tell me about what it looks like for you today, like in a practical way. What does your spiritual life look like? How does it show up for you?
Yeah, there are a couple of things, and I wouldn't necessarily say on a daily basis, but I would say on a more routinely regular basis that I do to practice whatever this thing is like that I call just really being in tune with myself and really allowing myself to grow as a spiritual being. Um, and one of them is writing. Writing is huge for me because not only do I do it for my business, I do book author coaching, book writing, book editing, book marketing, and self-publishing. So I work with other authors as well as I do my own as an author as well. But um, what I have found to be true is when I write, that is the greatest form of creative expression for me, much like how someone might sing or someone else might dance or someone else might play an instrument or someone else might develop, websites or whatnot. Writing is the mode or the method in which I do it, and that's the way I'm able to channel the thoughts and the ideas and the creativity, and it's so beautiful for me. And sometimes I feel like it's a chore. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I have to write today, but I notice that the moment I do, I feel so much better because that's me releasing whatever it is that's inside of me, whether it's an idea that needs to come out on paper and it will just keep eating away at my brain and I'll have racing thoughts for days until I get it out. That might be one thing. And the other might just be that um, if I'm afraid to voice an opinion or I'm afraid to speak up, sometimes it doesn't have to be a vocal coming out of the mouth, right? It could be maybe you just needed to express that in a journal somewhere and you tuck it away where nobody else can read it. It'll never be published. Maybe it was just that. Maybe that's something you need to do. So I would say that's one way that I channel, if that's what we want to call it. And then the other thing I do too sometimes is I will actually channel. I'll sit in meditation to prepare myself, to center myself, to get myself to a place of get that laundry list out of my head and start focusing on, what is it that I want to be able to hear? What do my spirit guides, my angel guides, masters, loved ones, teachers, whoever wants to come through to me, what kind of messages do they want to share with me today? And so that sometimes requires me to just sit in quiet and stillness and quiet in my closet because that's the quietest place in the house. And I'll just start to get, intuitive hits. And sometimes that comes in the form of if you close your eyes and you kind of like picture yourself like imagining something, right? Sometimes they'll come to me in the form of like an image in my mind or a movie playing in my mind. Sometimes they'll kind of come to me in an inaudible way, like I'll hear myself mentally thinking about something, but I know that I didn't think about that. I'm like, what? Why do I have to say the word, go to KFC and pick a bucket of, pick up a bucket of 8-piece fried chicken. Like I wasn't thinking about that. Who's telling me that? You know what I mean? So sometimes they'll come to me as an inaudible message. And then many times they'll also come to me as like a feeling or a sensation, something that I know to be true. And logically in my mind, there's no way I would know that to be true. So those are kind of the three methods in which, if I'm still enough, I'll get intuitive hits. And then what I have to do after I begin getting these messages, then I have to process, well, what do I need to do with these messages? Is this something I need to share with somebody? Is this something I just need to meditate on and be aware of? Do I need to write about this somewhere? Do I need to go and call somebody and share this with somebody? Or is this just a matter of me just needing to hear that and be validated right now?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the follow-up question might be, well, how did you even get to a place where you allowed this to even happen?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, my journey was in 2007, so about 10 years ago. I had a breakup. A job was really rough at the time, and I especially at that time needed therapy and needed counseling, needed help. And in the process of getting all that therapy and help that I got, the wonderful therapist said, you should really look into something like, yoga or meditation or Reiki. So I did all of them, and I fell in love with Reiki energy healing. And at the time, I'm not going to say that it wasn't well known yet. It probably was in some pockets of the world, but where I lived at the time, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we were more conservative. So, people are like, what do you mean, like the person puts their hands on you but they don't massage you? What is happening to you? But I went and did it. I
So
went and did
just
it.
so just in case someone doesn't know what Reiki
Yeah.
is, describe it a little
Yeah,
bit.
so basically, you will go as if you're going to have a massage. You lay on the massage table, but you keep your clothes on, and the Reiki healer will lay their hands on top of different various energy points in your body, which are known as chakras. And their job in that time that they spend with you, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour, is to just allow you to be calm and to be still and to relax as if you were meditating, but through their support of being able to hold you in the different parts of your body that need to be held. And what I mean by held is maybe sometimes you have a hard time meditating because you just can't be still because your mind is constantly racing. So the Reiki master might put their hands on your head to hold your head in a spot so that you feel comforted, so that you feel safe. And while their hand is there, they're allowing the energy that's already within you to stop cycling out of control. And what ends up happening is the cycling, swirling energy in you will start balancing itself. It'll start moving in a way where it's like, I feel relieved now. And then the Reiki master moves their hands to the next part of your body where you might be whirling out of control again with your energy. And then the energy starts to find its balance again there too. It's not magic. There's nothing strange about it. It's basically our bodies are full of energy, and sometimes energy is trapped in a way in your body where it's either overactive or it's underactive. And so you're just giving attention to those spots and you're allowing them to feel balanced. If it's overactive, you calm it down. If it's underactive, you help stimulate it. And so a Reiki master guides you to a meditative space. And by the time you're done, you feel as if you just got done napping or that somebody did massage you and you're just like, that felt nice. So I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it so much that after that, I realized, wow, someone like me who's type A, saleswoman at the time, go, 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 working over 60 hours a week, soccer mom, wrestling mom, full-time worker, and I was going to school full-time at nights for my MBA too, overachieving woman. I was not making space to be still and to be calm. And Reiki was one of the only ways that I forced myself, because I had to force myself to just be still. And so fast forward a few years, I decided to go get level 1 attunement. And then next few years after that, level 2. And then, eventually today, 10 years later, I'm a Reiki master because I felt the benefits of the energy healing. So that has opened me up. And so fast forward, to today, after all that time, I believe that I'm able to be an open channel to spiritual guidance because I've become so open to receiving that kind of love and support that that I'm so connected. I'm so connected to my own higher being. I'm so connected to all of the spirit and angel guides out there who want to give me guidance because I'm willing to hear from them and listen. So I wholeheartedly believe anybody who's listening, if for some reason they're like, well, they're not visiting me, I guarantee you, give yourself the space and the time and become more still and become less focused on forcing the message to come and just telling yourself, I'm open to receiving the message, you will hear or feel or sense something in some way, shape, or form. But I think sometimes we're just too busy that we're not paying attention to the messages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
One of the best uh, birthday gifts I ever gave my husband was a half an hour of yoga, one-on-one yoga that then led directly into a Reiki session.
Oh, that's so cool.
And he was like, "This was the best thing," and I was like, "Oh, it's like it was home run."
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I really the combination.
Yeah.
I just like I think everyone should really try that like combination of the physical
Mm-hmm.
getting in and
Yeah.
then having that piece. Yeah, I think that I think that we're complete. I feel the only thing I want to add is to what you had to say is that trust, like ask for a teacher,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you were wondering, if you somehow found this podcast and if you're like, I don't know what these people are talking about, but I'm interested and I'm curious or whatever, like I get quiet and I just start saying, show me, show me. Like I talk about this all the time, which is I ask for like airplane hangar guys to be like, turn left, go this way, right? It's like light it up, like
It's
make
true.
it obvious, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so if you are interested in something that we're talking about, feel free to email, feel free to contact you, and also just see who is listen to the quiet voice on who is your teacher.
I agree. And I'll even add to that that many times we do already have teachers who are present in our lives, and they may not, we might not recognize it because it might not be obvious, and I'll just give a quick example. Before we recorded, you had asked me about my show, and though it's on hiatus right now, I think it's important to mention the show because bravebearuniversity.com is the name of a um, podcast slash online free university. Really, all it is essentially was a resource that I wanted to create for others who are kind of coming behind me or beside me, where it's like I'm a spiritual person who's still so new to learning all of these different healing modalities, but I'm also, business minded. I either, I'm a coach or I'm an online business owner, or I would like to be. And I somehow want to be able to marry the spiritual side of me with this business side of me. And so I had so many people coming to me at the time asking me for advice, whether it was through an email or through a reply to my newsletter or just, contacting me on social media. And they kept asking me I wish there was a way that I could learn about this healing modality or that business tactic. And I'm like, why don't I just bring together my favorite spiritual teachers with all of these people who want to be their students? And if I create a platform where I can connect you guys together and I can be the bridge, then that's what I want it to be. So I created bravebearuniversity.com because there seemed to be a demand for it at the time. There was no monetary value attached to it. I had no means of, well, now I'm going to monetize this and do something with this. No, it was a passion project because I felt that there were enough people asking on both sides. And so I wanted to make it happen. And like I said, though it's on hiatus right now, I think it helps answer that question too for people where they're like, where do I go? Where do I begin? What do I do? And what you're doing right now, Leslie, is very similar to my passion project. It's we're giving a voice to teachers and also students who want to learn from each other, who want to have these amazing conversations. And the more of us out there who are doing this, the more resources we can provide for people like your listeners to say, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one who's just as confused, but equally interested. Thank you for this. So I love what you're doing, Leslie, because it's a continuation of even what I'm doing and what many of our peers are also doing in this space as well. So we need to keep these conversations going because the more we have them, the more we're educating, empowering, and teaching others who are coming after us.
Yeah,
so yeah, thank you for
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. So if they were to find you, links to all of these things will be on my website, coachleslie.com/podcast. But let me spell your name. If you
Sure.
are driving along, you can go to www.bernixx BerniXiong.com.
That is correct.
There you go. And
BerniXiong.com. Yeah,
there
and
you go.
please feel free, anybody who, reaches out to me via email or if you subscribe to my newsletter, I actually do reply to the emails. And I've had people ask me a question and I replied to them. They're like, oh my gosh, you really do answer this? And I said, yes, I do. I love connecting to people. So if anybody does end up contacting me, tell me that where you found me, tell me that you know Leslie. And either way, I would respond to you, but I'd be so excited to continue this conversation if anybody needs any additional support.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for your
of
time. I
course.
really
And thank
appreciate
you.
it.
And thank you for the conversation. It's so needed.
Absolutely.